Have you ever sat in silence, staring at the ceiling, replaying what someone did to you and thinking they shouldn't get away with this? That moment, that ache in your chest, that restless fire in your mind, is where most people get stuck. We crave justice. We fantasize about comebacks. We want them to feel what we felt. But the Stoics would ask you something else. What if the most powerful response isn't revenge at all, but transformation? Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury, not to fight fire with fire, but to rise so far above the flames that they can no longer touch you." The real victory is not in making them suffer. It's in becoming someone they can no longer disturb. In this video, we'll explore the Stoic path to reclaiming your power, quietly, deliberately, without needing to look back. If you've ever been hurt and wondered how to truly move forward, not just survive but grow stronger because of it, then stay with me. What you're about to learn might just change how you see everything. Chapter 1. Why traditional revenge is a trap. Let me tell you a story. I was pulling into a tiny coffee shop lot, barely a few parking spaces available. Just as I was about to ease into one, a guy in a lifted truck swung around the corner and slid right in. No blinker, no nod. Just a smug little grin like he'd won something. And for a split second, I wanted revenge. My mind flashed with every dramatic idea. Block his car in, slash his tires, write something on his windshield. I didn't act on it, of course, but the desire hit me hard. Then it hit me even harder. If I gave in, he'd still be in that coffee shop enjoying his drink, while I stood outside seething, obsessing, spinning a whole fantasy where I get even. That's what revenge really is. It's not justice, it's self-imprisonment. You think you're taking power back, but you're not. You're handing it over, letting someone else's actions script your emotions. The Stoics understood this trap. They weren't detached from the world because they were passive. They were detached because they knew emotional entanglement gave others control. Seneca said it best, "No one can harm you without your permission." At first that feels naive, but he wasn't talking about physical harm. He meant the emotional grip people get on you when you let anger lead. And here's the thing, when we feel wronged, we want something that feels fair. But often, what we really want is symmetry. You hurt me, I hurt you. You humiliate me, I humiliate you. Ancient instincts. The problem is, this never ends. You become locked in someone else's storm, matching their fire with yours, and the cycle just spins. There's also a physiological trap. When we're wronged, our amygdala kicks in, the fight or flight center. Adrenaline surges, logic shuts down. We stop asking, what's best for me? And start asking, how do I get back at them? But the amygdala isn't concerned with long-term peace. It wants short-term domination, and domination feels good for a moment. But after that, you're stuck with the consequences. You burned a bridge. You acted out of rage. You traded control for a rush. And now what? You're still haunted. That's the irony. Revenge ties you closer to the person you're trying to be free from. Stoicism offers a cleaner path, not one of weakness, but of strength. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury." That's not moral superiority. That's self-command. Someone lies to you, tell the truth. Someone mocks you, move forward with quiet excellence. You don't lower your standards to match theirs. You elevate your standards so high that their behavior becomes invisible to you. A friend of mine, let's call her Lisa, went through a brutal divorce. Her ex spread lies. He turned friends against her. She was furious. She wrote drafts of responses, planned confrontations. But eventually she asked herself, what does that get me? The answer, more chaos. So she did the radical thing. She disappeared. She didn't fight. She didn't engage. She built her life. A year later, Lisa had moved on. New job, new city, new peace. Her ex, still talking, still bitter, still stuck. She didn't win by out-arguing him. She won by outgrowing him. And that's the lesson. Traditional revenge tells you the only way to win is to fight. Stoicism tells you the only way to win is to stop playing. And no, that doesn't mean you let people disrespect you. It means you don't let their disrespect define you. You set boundaries, you hold the line, but you don't lose your mind trying to make them pay. So the next time someone cuts you off, talks behind your back, or betrays your trust, ask yourself, is this worth my peace? Is their behavior a reflection of me or of them? And what would it look like if my life became so full, so steady, so well built, that they simply faded into irrelevance? Because revenge isn't silence, it's success. It's not fire, it's freedom. And about that guy who stole my parking spot, I drove to a different cafe, got a better seat, had a better coffee, and forgot all about him. Until now. And even now, I'm smiling, because peace is power. If that resonates with you, hit the like button and subscribe. There's more wisdom where this came from, and I'd love for you to be here when it arrives. Chapter 2. Revenge Without Reaction. I once worked with a guy named Kevin, and if your mind immediately jumped to that overly confident, slightly smug co-worker who always knows how to sprinkle just enough sarcasm into a meeting to get under your skin, you've got the right picture. Kevin was the kind of guy who would accidentally leave you off important emails, then pretend it was some innocent oversight. The same guy who'd make a comment about your work ethic, just light enough to sound like a joke, but sharp enough to sting right in front of your boss. Classic Kevin, I'll admit it. I wanted revenge. I imagined myself catching him in a mistake during a major presentation and dismantling it so smoothly the whole room would fall silent. Or writing an email so scathing, so eloquently brutal that people would whisper about it for months. But one morning, as I was replaying yet another Kevin moment in my head for the 10th time, I caught myself. What exactly was I doing? Planning a takedown like I was in a courtroom drama. Why was I giving someone like Kevin front row access to my peace of mind? That's when a very different kind of strategy clicked into place, a Stoic strategy. The Stoics taught that real power doesn't come from getting even, it comes from not being moved in the first place. Marcus Aurelius, who ruled an empire and still somehow found time to write about self-control, said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." That line didn't just land, it rearranged me. Because Kevin wasn't the problem. My response was. The annoyance, the mental rehearsals, the internal debates, all of it came from giving him more influence over my mind than he deserved. And that's what most of us miss. We believe that if we just deliver the perfect comeback, the perfect burn, we'll feel better. But that version of revenge, the one driven by emotion, is a trap. You're reacting. You're surrendering the wheel, and you're letting them drive you into a ditch. There's a name for this in modern terms, emotional hijacking. It's when someone presses just the right button, and suddenly you're not operating from clarity anymore. You're in a storm, heart racing, fists clenched, saying and doing things you'll replay later with regret. Stoicism warns us of this loss of sovereignty. They knew that the greatest power isn't to dominate others, it's to not be dominated by yourself. So I changed tactics. I stopped investing in revenge fantasies. I stopped trying to one-up Kevin. I didn't withdraw or play the victim either. I simply stopped reacting. I responded, but on my terms. Calm, clear, focused. When he made a snide comment in front of others, I acknowledged the point without flinching. When he tried to exclude me from a project, I clarified directly, without emotion, without insult. And you know what happened? He lost interest. The fuel ran out. Because guys like Kevin feed off reaction, they thrive on drama, on the feeling of control. But when you meet provocation with stillness, it confuses them, it unsettles them, and most importantly, it frees you. This isn't about pretending not to care. It's about genuinely reaching a point where their behavior doesn't shake your center. You become unshakable, not because you're cold, but because you're anchored. That's the Stoic formula for revenge. Not to outshout, not to outshame, but to outlast. To become the kind of person whose presence alone commands quiet respect. Because every time you choose not to react, every time you let someone else carry their bitterness alone while you walk away lighter, you're not losing, you're winning. And you're doing it without lifting a sword. So if you're still thinking about how to get even with your own version of Kevin, stop. Don't plot. Don't spiral. Instead, pause. Master your emotions. Let their storm pass through while you remain unmoved. Because that, my friend, is how you win without a fight, and that's what we'll build on in the next chapter. Chapter 3. Rise beyond their reach. Let's not pretend this is easy. Mastering your emotions sounds noble on paper, but in real life, it's a daily test. There were mornings I walked into the office determined to keep my cool, only to feel that old frustration rise the second Kevin flashed one of his friendly remarks in front of the team. That subtle jab masked as a joke. That casual comment that undermined me just enough to sting. And yes, I wanted to respond. I wanted to put him in his place. To remind him that his games weren't invisible. But instead of reacting, I chose something harder. I chose to redirect that energy. That's where the second step comes in. If the first is mastering your emotional response, the second is excelling beyond the noise. Not to prove a point. Not to get even, but to rise so far above them that they're not even in your rear view anymore. This is the part most people overlook. They stop at self-control, thinking the absence of reaction is enough. But the Stoics understood something deeper. The best revenge isn't about making someone else feel small. It's about becoming someone so focused, so grounded, so full of purpose that their attempts to diminish you fall flat. The goal isn't to hurt them. The goal is to build a life so expansive, so meaningful, that their betrayal shrinks to a footnote in your story. And that doesn't require a stage or a grand announcement. It requires quiet, consistent work. It requires you to shift your focus from them to you. Let me give you a powerful example that isn't always found in the history books. Most people know the name Franklin D. Roosevelt. Fewer pay attention to Eleanor Roosevelt, not just the First Lady, but a force of intellect and compassion who faced more betrayal than most people realize. Her marriage was riddled with infidelity. She had every reason to retaliate, to spiral into bitterness or scandal, but she didn't. She turned her pain into purpose. She became an outspoken advocate for human rights, chaired the committee that drafted the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, and emerged as one of the most respected women of the 20th century. Her impact stretched far beyond the personal wounds she suffered. She excelled, not to spite anyone, but because she refused to stay small. That is what Stoic revenge looks like. For me, that meant digging into my work. I stopped obsessing over Kevin and started refining my craft. I spent time with people who challenged me in a good way, who respected me without needing to tear someone else down. I learned, I grew, and slowly something shifted. I wasn't thinking about Kevin anymore, not because he disappeared, but because he no longer mattered. My life was too full for pettiness. That's what happens when you choose to build instead of react. You realize that the people who tried to hold you back were never holding anything at all. They only had power because you gave them attention. And once you take that back, they shrink. Stoicism teaches us that real strength is quiet. It doesn't announce itself. It shows up in consistency, in restraint, in refusing to be defined by the actions of others. Marcus Aurelius didn't write about revenge. He wrote about excellence. He wrote about aligning your actions with your values, regardless of who's watching. That is how you win. Because here's the truth. Nothing unsettles a petty person more than watching someone they tried to undermine succeed anyway. Not loudly, not vindictively, just steadily, silently, rising. You don't need their applause. You don't need their regret. You just need to keep going. Let them talk. Let them twist the story. Let them fade. You are not here to fight shadows. You are here to build light. So the next time you're tempted to look back, to replay the insult or rewrite the perfect comeback, stop. Focus forward. Because what comes next, when you've mastered your emotions and stepped into your own excellence, that's when real power begins to grow. And that, more than any confrontation, is the kind of revenge they'll never understand. Chapter 4. Let go and let fate work. The Stoics didn't stop at emotional control or personal excellence. They understood a deeper truth. One that's hard to embrace when your pride is wounded or when justice feels delayed. Eventually, there comes a moment when the wisest, most powerful move you can make is to walk away and trust fate. That's step 3. Letting go, not with bitterness, but with clarity. Not with resentment, but with resolve. And it's far harder than it sounds. Because what we really crave when we've been wronged isn't just healing, it's closure. We want to see the scales balance. We want to witness karma in real time. But the world doesn't always give us that satisfaction. The Stoics called it nature, or fate, that mysterious rhythm by which life unfolds. You might call it divine justice, the universe, or natural consequences. Whatever name you give it, understand this. It doesn't move according to your demands. It doesn't arrive on schedule. And standing around waiting for it is just another way of staying stuck. Epictetus, who was once a slave and later became one of the greatest Stoic philosophers, put it plainly: don't explain your philosophy, embody it. That means we don't get to sit around hoping the universe will teach someone a lesson. We get up, we move forward. We live in such a way that their actions no longer matter. Their name stops showing up in our thoughts. Their story ends because ours has evolved beyond it. And here's where most people struggle. Anger feels active. Holding a grudge feels like holding a sword. It gives us a sense of agency, like we're doing something to hold them accountable. But it's an illusion. That anger is not a sword. It's a weight, a burden. And the person you're carrying it for, they're not feeling it. You are. You're the one dragging it through your days, through your relationships, through your sleep. When I finally let go of what Kevin had done, it wasn't because I forgave him. It wasn't because I had some breakthrough moment of inner peace. It was because I was tired of wasting energy on a story that was no longer mine. Tired of letting one person's behavior echo louder in my life than my own purpose. And when I truly dropped it, not just said I had, but actually released the need for vindication, I got something better than revenge. I got freedom. I got space. Space to focus on my family, my work, my future. And in that space, something unexpected happened. He faded. Not because he changed, but because I did. That's the quiet victory. When you master your emotions, when you rise beyond them, and when you finally release them, you become unreachable. Not cold, not indifferent in a hollow way, but steady, centered, free. But let's be clear, Stoicism doesn't mean you let people walk all over you. It's not passivity dressed up in philosophy. Sometimes you will have to speak up. You'll need to set firm boundaries. You'll have hard conversations, maybe even painful ones. But here's the key. You'll be doing it from a place of clarity, not from the fire of vengeance, but from the strength of reason. You're not reacting anymore. You're choosing. You're protecting what matters, not wasting time on what doesn't. You act when it serves your future, not when it feeds your pride. So walk away when it's time, not because you're weak, but because your energy is no longer for sale. And as we'll see in the next chapter, when you fully embrace this kind of self-command, something else happens. You don't just walk away from the person who wronged you. You walk into a version of yourself that they never had the power to destroy. Chapter 5. Forgive and be free. Let's be honest. Forgiveness doesn't sound like revenge. It doesn't come with applause. It doesn't deliver that fantasy moment where the person who hurt you realizes their mistake, falls to their knees, and begs for your grace. But in the eyes of the Stoics, forgiveness might be the most powerful form of justice there is, not because it changes them, but because it liberates you. Forgiveness, as the Stoics saw it, isn't about reconciliation. It's not about pretending the wound wasn't deep. It's not about excusing, forgetting, or inviting someone back into your life with open arms. Forgiveness is internal, quiet, unseen, and completely for your own peace of mind. When you forgive in the Stoic sense, you set down the burden of resentment. You stop carrying around that mental backpack full of anger, imagined confrontations, and the endless reruns of what they did to you. You choose to be free. Marcus Aurelius said, "The best way to avenge yourself is to not be like your enemy." If you're still bitter, still plotting, still hoping they suffer, then you're still in their grip. You're still shaped by their actions, reacting to them in your mind, even when they're no longer in the room. And here's the harsh truth. They're not feeling it. They're not sitting there regretting what they did every night. In fact, they may not be thinking about it at all. But you are. You're the one losing sleep. You're the one clenching your jaw. You're the one reliving something that should have been left behind. That's not justice. That's captivity. Epictetus taught that anything outside your control, what someone does, says, thinks, should not disturb your peace. But if you keep replaying their offense, you're giving them a key to your inner world. Forgiveness is how you take it back. You don't forgive because they deserve it. You forgive because you deserve peace. It's not about letting them off the hook. It's about taking yourself off it. Imagine a locked cell you've been sitting in for years. No one else around, just you and your anger. Forgiveness is the realization that the door was never locked. You've just been sitting there with the key in your hand, too proud or too hurt to use it. And let's clear this up. Forgiveness doesn't mean trust. It doesn't mean you invite them back into your life. Your peace has boundaries. Your well-being has a gate. And forgiveness doesn't require you to open it. You can wish someone well from a distance. You can release the grudge without erasing the lesson. You can let go of the poison without pretending it never existed. Forgiveness is a boundary too. It's the act of saying, "I will not let this shape me any longer." You stop dragging the offense into every conversation, every relationship, every quiet moment. You choose to live forward, not because they've changed, but because you have. And if you're still holding on to a grudge, still carrying the fantasy of someday getting even, pause, Ask yourself, does this actually serve me? Does spending my time, my energy, my mental clarity on this person create the life I want? Or is it holding me back from everything I could be? The answer, if you're honest, is always the same. No grudge is worth your peace. No past offense is worth your future. You don't have to forget. You don't have to reconcile, but you do have to choose between bitterness or freedom, resentment or clarity. The Stoics knew what we're all still learning, that forgiveness isn't weakness, it's power, it's sovereignty, and it's the final act of true revenge, not because it hurts them, but because it heals you. You don't need to prove anything. You don't need the perfect moment of justice. What you need is your own life back. So forgive, not for them, but so you can walk forward, unchained, unbothered, and completely untouchable. That is the true end of the story, and that, my friend, is the strongest move you'll ever make. So here it is, the final Stoic truth about revenge. The real victory is not found in anger. It is not in the clever comeback or the perfect moment where they finally see your worth. True revenge is quieter. It is in the way you live without them, in the way you rise every morning with peace in your chest instead of weight on your shoulders. It is in the way you build a life so full, so steady, that their actions no longer echo in your mind. When you stop seeking revenge and start investing in your own growth, something shifts. You become someone they cannot touch. Not because you shouted louder, but because you simply chose not to shrink. You became grounded, focused, awake, and yes, they will see it. They will see you smiling more, thriving more. They will feel the absence of your reaction and wonder when they lost the power to disturb you. That is your quiet triumph. Not to hurt them, but to heal yourself so deeply that their memory becomes weightless. So let me ask you one thing. From this moment forward, what will you do differently? What is one action you can take today that belongs to your future, not your past? Drop this in the comments. I choose peace. If something in this message spoke to you, if you felt even a flicker of clarity or strength, then stay close. Subscribe. Because what we are doing here is not just reflection, it is transformation. Quiet, powerful, and entirely yours. You are not here to live in reaction. You are here to live with intention. Your story does not end in pain. It begins again in strength. And in the next video, we will go even deeper into how to guard your peace in a world that keeps trying to steal it. Stay with me. Your journey is only getting started.